Welcome to another in our series of Kehillat Israel podcasts. This is a recording of Rabbi Amy Bernstein's weekly Friday morning Torah study.
We, as you know, are finishing Deuteronomy because Simchas Torah is coming. So we're finishing Deuteronomy. We're beginning Genesis at Simchas Torah. The tradition is never to be between books of Torah, God forbid. We're never not in a book of Torah. So the practice at Simchas Torah is to read the last lines of Deuteronomy and immediately begin the first lines of Genesis. So you don't say, oh, well, we're done with Deuteronomy. Next week we start. We finish Deuteronomy, we begin Genesis, so that we're never between books of Torah. We never take a break, God forbid. So that will be on Simchat Torah. So the last portion of Deuteronomy is read on Simchat Torah, not on Shabbat. So we never study it in this room because we're never together on Simchat Torah studying Torah. What Torah portion are we studying now? If we're not studying V'zot HaBracha, and we did Ha'azinu last week, what are we supposed to study right now? Good Pam Witt. Gold star. We are in Hol Hamoed Sukkot. We are in the days that are not Yom Tov of Sukkot. And we call those days Hol Hamoed. Hol meaning regular. Moed meaning season, meaning an appointed season, an appointed holy time. So we are in the regular days of the holy time. So Hol Hamoed. And on Hol Hamoed Sukkot, there's always a Shabbat in Sukkot because Sukkot is 8 days or 7 days, whatever. And so outside of Israel, it's 8 days. So there's always a Shabbat. And so we always read the same Torah portion on the Shabbat of Sukkot. And so that's why our reading is completely out of order from where we've been going on the lectionary. All right. So now you're going to ask, well, what is the Hol Hamoed reading for Sukkot, Rabbi? Pinchas, ma pitom. No. You're looking up a different day of Hol Hamoed. We're studying Shabbat. We're studying what we read tomorrow in Shul. Yes, they do. It's Tisa. Where are you looking, Dana? On a Shabbat? It's always Tisa on Shabbat. I hate to blow up your children's experience of Bar Mitzvah, but it is always Parshat Tisa. Why? Because Tisa, a section of the assigned reading for tomorrow, for Shabbat, which we read together in our Torah study on Friday, because there is a reading for today, but we're not doing that. We're doing tomorrow's. It includes the festival calendar. It is the portion assigned to Sukkot, Pesach, to the Hol Hamoed Shabbat of all those festivals. That's what we read as this thing. So those of us who engage with every week this Torah study read this portion at least 4 times a year. Because we read it on the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 festivals on Hol Hamoed, on that Shabbat, and we read it in its regular place in the lectionary, Tisa. So we read this section 4 times a year, which makes it challenging for your teacher to make this riveting for you. Mark, that laugh was way too quick and instinctive. Okay. Shavuos, Sukkot, and Pesach. So the 3 pilgrimage festivals and in its regular place when we're reading Exodus. So we are in Parshat Tisa. I'm not going to spend a lot of time this morning on the holiday festival calendar part of the reading because that's not what is interesting to me right now, right? Because we encounter this 4 times a year. I have to figure out, okay, what is it right now that is compelling? Y'all know who have been studying with me for a long time. This is one of my favorite parshiot, one of the favorite, not even the parsha, just this part of it is one of my favorite in Torah. We're not supposed to have favorites, but we do. It's like children, right? You're not supposed to have a favorite, but people do. Now it may shift, right? Who your favorite child is, but we are in Exodus 33. So y'all with your Bibles, get there. So those of you with the green Bibles, you are looking at the Women's Torah Commentary. The text is JPS, the Jewish Publication Society original translation. So it's a huge amount of work, as you can imagine, to translate the Bible into English. It's a huge amount of work. So generally people don't do that. So the Women's Torah Commentary, that's why it's called that, because it's the commentary that is done by women. The text is the JPS text. And so what you have in the Green Book are commentaries below the line, and at the end of each parsha, you have beautiful poetry and commentary and thoughts and insights by women scholars and poets that they have asked to contribute to the volume. And I see most of you have the Green Book. So feel free to look below the line. Feel free to peruse all of that. I did. I got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So what's happening right now? So Moshe has gotten the tablets, right? God says to Moshe, carve a set of tablets and bring them up to the mountain. And then God, with the finger of God, they are written. The rabbis talk a lot about what that means. There's one that says it's a miracle. The text goes through the stone, but you could read the text no matter which way the tablets went. Nifty. So whatever it is miraculously written, but with the finger of God. And then Moshe comes, and then God says to Moshe, you better get down there, because the people you brought up from Egypt are messing up. And Moshe says, Ma pitom. What do you mean the people I brought up from Egypt? Right? So Moshe goes down and sees what's happening. He hears this big noise. He doesn't know what's happening. It could be war. It could be something, because there's a huge, amount of noise coming from the camp. Moshe goes down, and of course the people are worshiping at the feet of the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf. And Moshe smashes those amazing tablets. There's lots of commentary on, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Interestingly enough, for the rabbis, in general, it's a good thing. And there's even a tradition where God says to Moshe, these tablets, Asher Shibarta, that you broke, they said, don't read Asher, read Yashar. That God is saying to Moshe, Yashar Koach, Shibarta. Good job that you smashed them. And then you'll have to go look at, or I'll bring it another year, lots of commentary about why is it a good thing that Moshe smashes these tablets. So Moshe smashes the tablets, and then it's horrible, right? What's happening? And so Moshe prays for the people, intercedes with God to have the people forgiven. There's a plague that breaks out against some of the folks who were ringleaders in this. And then God forgives the people and says to Moshe, now you carve 2 sets. You carve 2 tablets. I did the first one, so we saw what happened with that. So now you carve the second set, bring them up here. And God agrees to renew the deal and write on those tablets. Yes, David? Okay. I'm like, microphone's going already. I'm like, we haven't even started reading. So, all right. So then Moshe goes back up with the tablets that he has carved, and gets forgiveness for the people, from God. So then there's this odd scene after that, where it's like, again, we have this stuff going on about Moshe wanting reassurance. So it doesn't seem enough for Moshe that God forgives the people, because we get this. God's already forgiven the people. Moshe brings a new set of tablets up. So this is an interesting scene. So I want you to think about what's going on. We just take it for granted. We always read it and just take it for granted. But that's not what we do in here. So why does Moshe need this? What's happening for Moshe? God's forgiven them. We're getting a new set of tablets. What's going on with Moshe right now, right? What's eating Moshe Rabbeinu? Let's look at the text. So we're at verse 12. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, Re'eh. Now this is a little chutzpahdik that Moshe says to God, Re'eh, look. All right? So we're at verse 12 of chapter 33. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai Re'eh. Moshe says to God, look it, as Rebecca Surratt of our wonderful staff would say, look it. You say to me, lead this people forward, but you've not made known to me whom you will send with me. Further, you have said, I have singled you out by name, and you have indeed gained my favor. So Moshe's quoting God, to God. All right? So look, God, you're telling me to lead these people, but you haven't told me who's going with me to help take care of business. And you said, I've singled you out by name and you have indeed gained my favor. Why is Moshe quoting God to God? Let's see. Now, if I have truly gained your favor, pray let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue in your favor. Consider too that this nation is your people. All right. So what's up with Moshe? He's right. Mark is like, okay, we got to analyze this guy, right? So he's gotten what he wants. What is happening? Moshe's like now quoting to God. Okay, you said lead this people forward, but you've not told me who's going with me. Number one, look it. Number one. Number two, you said I've gained your favor. Okay, well, if that's true, then what? Then show me your ways that I may know you and continue in your favor. Okay, so a request for some kind of new knowledge of God that Moshe hasn't had until now. What does this mean? Show me your ways. We don't know, right? We're not told. Show me your ways that I may have some kind of what? Way of guaranteeing that I can stay in your favor? Okay. Period. So the end of that thought. And then what's the next thought? Also consider this is your people. So what's that? Where's that coming from? Your daughter, right, has, right? But that's all done. So on some level, part of the commentary is a big question about what's up with Moshe here. It seems that God's already forgiven them. He's got a new set of tablets, Moshe, and is going up the mountain. What is this about? Right? What is going on with Moshe Rabbeinu? All right. So now God has a couple of options about how to respond. Look, you cheeky prophet is one way to respond to this. That does not seem what God does. So does God get mad? Is God frustrated? Is God impatient? Let's see. What does God say? Vayomer, panai yelechu v'hanichoti lach. I will go in the lead, and I will lighten your burden. All right. So clearly, God is not upset with Moshe, whatever's going on with Moshe. God seems okay with it, right? I understand you're nervous. I understand you're anxious. We've had these kinds of conversations before. I'm going to go in the lead. Don't worry. All right. It's a very loving, compassionate, patient, caring response. Well, whatever they are, God seems to understand that Moshe needs something, and God responds. So God's not upset by this. So Moshe gets this very gracious response from God. Okay, wouldn't you be going, at this point, right? Is that where Moshe Rabbeinu leaves it? No, because this is a story written by whom? Jews. Did someone say men? Jews. This is written by Jews. So does Moshe just leave it there and say, thank you, God, that's very considerate of you. I appreciate it. No. What does Moshe say? Well, unless you do go in the lead, do not make us leave this place. So Moshe responds essentially, see that you do. Okay. Otherwise, so Moshe goes on, how shall it be known that your people have gained your favor unless you go with us, so that we may be distinguished, your people and I, from every people on the face of the earth? Moshe is pushing it, we might imagine. Is God ready to lose God's cool now? Let's see. And God says to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have asked, for you have truly gained my favor, and I have singled you out by name. All right? God is still incredibly patient, incredibly calm, seems to get that Moshe is needy right now and is ready to give Moshe what Moshe needs. Okay, beautiful. Vayomer, and this is now Moshe, Har'eni na et kavodecha. So Moshe says, show me your kavod. Show me your presence, glory, essence. Show me. What does God answer? And God answered, Ani a'avir kol tuvi al panecha, v'karati v'shem yud hei vav hei lifanecha, v'chanoti et asher achon, v'richamti et asher arachem. Okay, a very enigmatic answer. So God answers, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name Yud Hey Vav Hey, and the grace that I grant, and the compassion that I show. Not a great literal translation. Barry, do you want to take a stab at translating that last part of the verse directly into English, like literally?
Let's see. It's like a longer version of Ayeh Asher Ayeh. I will be whatever I will be. So Barry
is suggesting this goes back to God saying to Moshe, when Moshe says, what's your name? Yeah, lovely. He's been paying attention all these years to his many teachers. So, right. So Moshe says to God at one point, who am I going to say sent me? Right? When God commissions Moshe, Moshe says, who am I going to tell them sent me? What's your name? You need a name of a God in the pagan world. You need to know which one you're working for. So Moshe says, who am I going to say sent me? And what does God answer? Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I will be what I will be. Tell them, Ehyeh, I will be sent you. So Barry is saying what many of the commentators say, which is that an answer? That answer is none of your beeswax. That's one way to interpret that answer. Another way to interpret that answer is you're asking the wrong question. All right. So he's suggesting here that God is giving kind of another sort of answer like that, because it's not an answer really. Show me your essence. What does God answer? God doesn't say, okay, or let me think about it, or maybe next Thursday, or you know what, let's let this sit for a bit, I'll get back to you. What does God answer? I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name Yud Hey Vav Hey. And then this bizarre formulation in Hebrew, V'chanoti et asher achon. I will mercify that which I will mercify, or chen here's grace. I will gracify that which I grace, and I will mercify that which I mercy. What is that? Okay. And by the way, there is no answer for what is that. There's a million answers in the commentary, but I'm telling you, that as tangled as that sounded in English, that's how it sounds in Hebrew. It just isn't, it's like, okay. But that's not what's being shown in front of Moshe. That is not what it says. It says, I will gracify that which I will grace, and I will mercify that which I mercy. That does not say goodness and mercy will pass before you. My goodness will pass before you.
But we see that goodness through the acts of people.
God is saying, I will show mercy on what I'll show mercy. I'll show grace on what I show grace. What does that have to do with show me your essence? It doesn't say I am grace. I'm filled with grace. I manifest grace through other people. That's not what it says. I will have mercy on that which I have mercy on. I will gracify that which I gracify. How is that show me your kavod?
Well, it sort of follows to me the fact that the stones, the tablets, are man-made now. So it's now not God handing down the word, but this word has to come from you now. But here it's, I will give grace to what is, you will see the essence of, you'll have to interpret what's grace by my actions. And you'll have to interpret, this is going to have to be an ongoing conversation of what is mercy, what is grace. That seems to make good sense to me.
So we're all interpreting what this means. What I want to stay with is the pshat. This simple answer is not an answer to Moshe's question. Moshe's request is show me your presence. Show me. This is God's answer. That is not an answer to Moshe's request.
I hear God saying, I'm still in charge.
I hear everybody explaining what God is saying, and we can go there. Not now, David. We're not going to interpret what this means right now.
No, but I was.
Unless we are.
Sorry. No. I mean, I never get bored of this thing, so I'm good 4 times a year. If you look at Moshe, he's been sort of used on a, what they say, like in these CIA movies, on a need-to-know basis. He's never given the big plan. It's like, just go and do this one plague, and then there's another plague, and he just gets worse and worse. And it's almost as if he's saying now he doesn't like.
Who's he?
Moshe.
Sorry. Okay.
He doesn't like this business of living in linear time. He wants to know outside of time. What's the big picture? I want to know. I don't want to be stuck on this need to know basis. I want the big picture.
Okay, but big picture need to know basis still suggests time.
Right.
I want to know the big plan. Still has to do with time.
No, but
what's coming?
But he wants sort of an omniscient sense of what not a time bound. He doesn't want to be time bound, and God is basically saying, at least this is the way I see it. I am that I am. Like, you are time bound, and what will happen will happen.
Where are you getting time in here?
Because he's he never knows what's going to happen next.
Right, but how does this show me your essence and God's answer? What does that have to do with events, time? God is saying, I'm going to mercify who I mercify him.
I'm taking essence to mean I want to know what you know, basically. I want to see it from your point of view.
So you're saying Moshe saying, I want to see reality through the divine eyes.
Yes.
Okay. Either way, God didn't answer the question or the request until our next verse. Finally, Moshe gets some kind of an answer to the original request, which is, Lo tuchal lirot et panai, ki lo yirani ha'adam v'chai. So God says, you can't, lo tuchal, it's not possible to see my face because, or for, lo, as it's often translated, lo, ha'adam, an earthling, lo yirani, can't see me, v'chai, and live. This seems to be an answer directly to Moshe's request. Show me your kavod. God seems to interpret kavod as panai, my face. And God says, lo tuchal lirot panai. It's not possible to see my face. Why not? Ki is an answer, right? Because lo yirani ha'adam b'chai. A human cannot see me, yirani, can't see me, v'chai, and live. All right.
Rabbi?
So this often is interpreted as, if you see me, you will die. Those of you who have learned with me know that is not how I translate this. All right. Dana, do you have something? And then somebody at home had something.
I don't think it's correct, this comment I made. I inferred that if you die, you get to see the face of God.
Who said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's your interpretation. Is when you die, you can see the face of God, but not while you're alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Barry?
I think there's a problem with the question. It's like if I ask you, please, Rabbi, show me time. What do you mean? Well, all you can see is time passing. You can see people get older. You can see a mug of coffee or it gets vaporized. You can see time. So
you're saying that Moshe's question already is a problem, and that God is saying, if I can interpret what you're saying, that essentially God is saying, you can't see me. Like literally.
Yeah.
You can't.
And
like you can't see time. You can't see my love. You can't see certain things. It's impossible.
Yes, but,
is that what you're saying?
Of course, but there is a power to the face as an organ, has a lot of power. For example, I had this debate with someone online. It got heated, but when we met in person, everything got softer. So the face has its own power that maybe God's face is too much power.
Okay, so
You will not be able to debate me like you do. You will not be able to do these very human and good things you do as a prophet if you saw my face.
okay, wait, but wait. So which is it? Is it like time that you can't see time, or is it that if you saw time, that would be something? That's another thing. So is it that you can see it or you can't see it?
I say both. So if you
Mutually
can
exclusive
see it, and
things.
if you could
Okay.
see it, that would be bad.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, so let's hold that.
Maybe what this is saying is a human can only go so far. And stop with the questions. Either you're on the bus or you're not. Either you get the glory or you don't. Choose how you want to live.
All right, so maybe God is saying, Moshe, you're stepping really close to the line here. Humans can only go so far. Okay. So, yes, George.
I was just going to say,
It seems to me Moses doesn't trust God in the beginning, right? He wants proof. And this thing, you can't see my face, means that maybe we have different definitions of God. And
it doesn't say you can't see my face. That's Barry's interpretation, possibly.
Well,
you can't see my face behind.
And live. Yeah, I'm sorry. I left out that other part.
Be very careful, George.
So that you cannot define God specifically and live, which allows then for the reconstruction of what God is or who God is or what.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I read a commentary that said, you can't have a relationship with the divine unless there is still in place the possibility for doubt. Just sort of what you're saying. Like if you get proof, you no longer believe in God. You no longer have, as long as it's indisputable, there's not a certain kind of relationship. There's a certain kind of relationship that is only in place as long as there's room for doubt. Okay, beautiful. Okay.
Amy,
okay, Rita. And then we're going to go on. Rita?
I was going to suggest that we've separated these two sentences, and they really are part of the same answer. You will see my effect. You can only see my effect. You can't.
Not yet. Wait, you're jumping the gun for me, Rita. Hold that thought.
But
okay.
I was combining the two sentences that we just read.
Well, I'm going to suggest no. It's this sentence and the next sentence. The next sentences are going exactly where you're going. So hang on. We can come back to you after. Let's read this because I think you're right. But I think the next sentences get at that. And what are the next sentences? Vayomer Adonai. And so what does God go on to say? Because Rita's right. God hasn't stopped talking. Right? God's still talking. We interrupted God. Just gonna say. Oh, only in this room, right? Okay, so the Jews always are interrupting God. So God continues. Hine makom iti venitzavta al hatzur. Here is a place next to me. Venitzavta al hatzur. Remember nitzavim? How we stand at attention, how we stand right. I'm going to do that to you, Moshe. In this place, I'm going to erect you next to me. Al hatzur, on the rock. V'haya ba'avor kavodi, and it will be in the passing of my kavod. This is what Moshe asked to see. Now we're getting an answer. In the passing of my kavod, right? My kavod is gonna pass. V'samticha b'nikrat hatzur, but I will put you in a cleft in the rock. Vasakoti chapi alecha, and I will put my hand on you ad avri, until my passing. Vahasiroti et kapi, v'ra'ita et achorai. Then I will take away my hand, v'ra'ita et achorai, and you will see my wake. My afterward. People say the back of God's neck. It does not say that. My achorai, my behind, my back, my I like to say afterwards. Ufanai lo yera'u. But my face, you will not see. All right. It doesn't say you can't see my face. It says you can't see my face as a human, v'chai, and live. You're not going to see my face. It doesn't say you can't. It says you're not gonna. Because I love you. I want you to chai. You're supposed to chai. You're supposed to live. It doesn't say you will die. The text does not say that. I want to be loyal to my word and go back to read it in a second. But it doesn't say you'll die. It says you can't live a human life if you confront the reality, the fullness of God. You will, by definition, be something else. You will be other than human. You will be superhuman. You will ascend in the language of Star Trek. You will ascend. You will be, right, you'll be in another reality. Human beings, like Mark said, have limits. And if you exceed those limits, you cease to live a human life. And that is not the goal of Judaism. This is a critically important point for me. I love this about Torah. God says the answer is not for you to be with me in some kind of, we're now totally intimate and you have surpassed human limitations. That is not a goal. Even for Moshe Rabbeinu, even for our greatest leader and the most intimate prophet of the divine, you are still a human being and you are supposed to live a human life. And that means there are limits on what I can show you. So what I can show you that you can then stay in a human life is what Rita said, my effect in the world. I will cause all my goodness to pass before you, and my kavod will pass. I will shield you from that because I love you and I want you to stay a human being. And once it's passed, I will take away my hand, God says, and you will see my effect, my wake, because that is all a human being can ever see of the divine and remain a human being. Anything else blows the paradigm apart. Anything more than that blows the paradigm open. And God doesn't want that, says this text in my interpretation. That we can only ever as human beings see and recognize, oh, there was God in my life after God has passed through. We can't see it in the moment. We might experience some sense, when you're on a boat and you go into or skiing, water skiing, oh my God, it's terrifying. And you cross into a boat's wake, right? You have to jump the edge. Clearly, this is not a water skiing crowd, but you have to jump the wake and not fall over, right? And so you can feel the wake, but you're not feeling the boat. You're feeling what the boat caused in the water. So it doesn't mean we don't feel it, sense it, experience it. It's not the direct impact of the boat. Because if you felt the direct impact of the boat, you would no longer be an Adam that is chai, a human that is alive. Right? Okay.
Water skiing was what we call skiing in Texas.
Right. No other kind.
That was not why I asked for the mic. Your use of the word godding is very related to this because by godding, we are seeing the effect of God without seeing God's face.
Okay. Hannah?
Thank you. So I'm new to this group and I'm appreciating the getting the literal meaning first. Is it okay for me to bring my projection?
Please,
okay.
Please. That's all we do here is our projections.
So by profession, I'm a psychotherapist.
Oh, here we go. Another one.
I think, it's a very Jewish profession.
It's a very Jewish profession.
Yeah. I think we see within certain forms of mental illness what I might call evidence of this. Of people who have what they will describe as very divine experiences, reckoning with at least their interpretation of witnessing the divine, often are extremely destabilized and unable to engage in human-to-human contact. And I'm agnostic on whether that's literally true, but I think we see the results of that in the world.
And given that this is written by humans, these humans also might have known people who they believed had more of a direct encounter with God. And what happened to those people?
Well, I think that
not
might
so high.
Circle back and explain how destabilized Moses is at the start of the text. You know, he's had a reckoning with God. Maybe he needs a little calming down afterwards.
And that maybe even the intense focus and the intense desire on that union is already a destabilized personality, and God at least knows not a good idea, right? Or at least that's the message of the humans who wrote this story, because again, those of us who don't believe this is a divine text, but a human text in conversation with the divine, whatever that means, these human beings who wrote this are saying, that is not God's goal for us. That's not our belief about what our God wants from us. David?
So how do you explain then the very last few verses of Deuteronomy and the same he face to face, God face to face?
Yep.
What do you have to say about that?
Yep. So what does it mean?
Well, he's not supposed to do that.
Not supposed to.
Well,
and yet,
he can't do that.
There it is.
Oh, but wait a minute. That's it. Because he was supposed to. The impression that it leaves is that he knew God face to face during his life. He didn't die and know God face to face.
So all I can say is that I believe it's an idiomatic expression. That as intimate as a human could be and live, Moshe was with God. I mean, that it has to, unless you want to say it's contradicting itself, and you can say that too. But otherwise, it has to be an idiomatic expression, and this is not, right? This is more literal. Mark?
You know, it seems to me that one of the things this has to do with is the capacity for belief as opposed to perceptual certainty.
Correct.
And that
which is what George was saying.
Yeah, and that what we're talking about in a sense is the ability to abstract and not to be caught in the mindlessness of concrete thought.
That is a very interesting turn of phrase. The mindlessness of concrete thought. Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to think about that for a while. But not in a concrete way.
But the mindless concreteness of the pagans who prepared the pyramids for the dead and stuff like that. I was imagining how different this story is when you compare it to the other pagan gods. I mean, that's what Moses is competing with. He's got to figure out a plan, commercial plan. How am I going to market this?
So, but presumably that's already happened. His mission, how am I going to market this, has already happened. And on some level, that marketing campaign failed. Because what did the people just finish doing? Getting a concrete symbol of Yud He Vav He called a calf. So clearly, Moshe knows his campaign failed because the people needed the concreteness that we're just talking about. They needed a symbol. And remember, they say, let us make a chag to Yud He Vav He. They are not worshiping an Egyptian god. They want a concrete symbol of, people argue, is it God or is it Moshe that they want a concrete symbol of? Remember, Moshe is gone. So either they want it to be about Moshe or God, it doesn't matter. They want a concrete something. And obviously, our folks, to your point, the folks who wrote this, and the big revolution of monotheism is not the number of gods, by the way. The fact that it's 1 and not 7 doesn't matter. Monotheism is not about that. The big revolution of monotheism is exactly what you're saying. A move away from the concrete to the idea that God's true essence is something we cannot, I'm going to say comprehend. The text says encounter and chai, right? In any case, all we can see is God's achorai, God's afterward, and live a productive, stable, maybe human life. And that is the big revolution. And I think this text is one of the core texts that speak to that it is not about a pyramid. It is not about preserving the dead body and being that's the whole point. You're right. It's a whole move away from that system. That is the big revolution of the Israelite contribution to the ancient Near East and its theology.
But between God and Moses, kind of a dialogue and debriefing, about what to do next. And ultimately, is the cloud and the fire established after this meeting?
They've been established.
Oh, okay.
They've been around.
So we still got something.
Right. But what God seems to be saying is that's going to have to be enough. Yes, the cloud's not me. Yes, the pillar of fire is not me. But that's all you get as human beings. You can't have more than a more direct encounter and high.
But we still have concrete things. The Torah, the kissing of the Torah with the,
sure.
the wearing of the tallis.
Sure.
All kinds, and especially, I guess on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, I forget which, where the Torah is open and people come down and basically pray right before the Torah.
That's only here in the sanctuary. That is nowhere else. We don't do that. We don't do that anywhere else.
Well, yeah, but this is still is an
It's a quirk of KI.
Really?
Yes. Nobody else does that. No.
Well, okay. Again, showing the need of something concrete for this temple and the reconstruction.
Right. So,
I'm still right. Whatever you say.
Whatever you say, I'm still right. A very Jewish response to the rabbi. Okay. So, to George's point, it doesn't say anywhere you can't have concrete relationships to things that represent me in your life. Nowhere does it say that. Nowhere. It's the image of God. That does not mean you can't have a physical thing with the words and the teachings that I give you on it. It's tablets, for crying out loud. I'm giving you tablets. It's the same as this. What are the tablets going to go in? What are they going to go in? The ark. This is not new. This is here. I'll give you the words. I'll give you the words physically on tablets. You'll put them in the ark. That will be the center of the Holy of Holies. At the center of the center is what? Words, not an image. Not an idol, which is what is in the center of the center of the center of the holiest pagan worship sites, is the niche in the wall in which they would put the image of the deity. This is exactly an argument against that. It doesn't mean we're not going to have physical relationships to those things that represent for us the teachings of our tradition, because we are human and human beings need that. And God seems very much to understand that. David?
I'm just saying a crueler version of this conversation is at the end of the book of Job, basically.
Oh, God. Don't tell me we're going to Job. Please.
No, it's the same thing. It's like you can't. Okay, we won't go there.
I can't stand Job. Okay, Lee, did you want to say something? Did I see you have a hand and move to that corner because you were talking?
Yeah, we sort of moved away from the thing that I was going to connect to. But
that's okay.
I was just thinking about how it's interesting that this happens in a moment where it feels like Moses is doubting himself, or it feels like he's at the end of his capacity as a leader, and that there seems to be an implication of God sort of underlining that the Israelites need a human leader, that Moses having some sort of extra ability isn't actually going to make him a better leader in this moment.
Nice.
That he sort of needs that connection to humanness and to limit.
So Lee, what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, what I hear you saying is Moshe seems to doubt his own, I need something more from you to really be your representative. To really do this right, I need a different kind of experience of you than everybody else has, or I'm not kind of legit as a leader. And that what I hear you saying, God is saying is, nuh-uh, that's not how this works. You have to remain just you and still figure out how to be the leader, still dig deep and figure out what gives you the capacity, the power, the energy, the trust, the confidence to lead these people. It ain't going to be because you get some special experience of me. That's not what makes a Jewish leader. Love that. Love that. That is a very Jewish answer. That is not what makes a Jewish leader, is that they have some special experience beyond the normal human experience. I love that.
I think you nailed it as a leader. But I want to ask you a question. Why are we talking about this as part of Sukkot before we?
Okay, so let's hold that question.
Can I just repeat to make sure I'm hearing you correctly? You made the statement that as a Jewish leader, you cannot look to say you're going to get something divine from me to give you leadership. What you've got to do is dig down inside of you to get it. Is that what I'm hearing you say clearly?
Well, that what makes you a Jewish leader is not that you have an exceptional, suprahuman experience of God. I'm not saying we don't draw on our connection to God to lead. Without it, I'd be lost. Mm-hmm. Whatever we mean by God. And you all know I don't mean what everybody thinks I mean. So drawing on those things that I call godliness, trust, faith, transformation, healing, forgiveness, like compassion, right? Drawing on all of that, I have to draw on that to lead the Jews, God knows. But it's not an experience that is inaccessible to people who are not Jewish leaders.
Okay.
It's nothing special that therefore I'm a Jewish leader because I have some special access. Everyone has access to the experience of the divine that I do. I'm not going to define it further than that.
Why not? I think that
because I think it's complicated. I don't think it's just a choice that I make. That's part of it. But I think it's also our experiences in early life. I think it's a capacity. I think it's our personality. I didn't want to be a banker. I mean, is that just about choice? No, it's about a lot of things, right? There's a lot that goes into making us who we are. And some people who tend to more toward, whatever. That's why, because it's a whole nother conversation. And I want to go to this. So we're going to this. So look at your paper on page 3. But now we don't have time to do everything I wanted to do. So we are going to jump to page 4. Dana, will you share with Lisa? There's an extra one over here if someone wants it. So, emboldened by the restored connection with God after the golden calf incident, Moshe blurts out, says our commentator, Rabbi Mark Margolius, a memorably chutzpahdik request. Hareini na et kavodecha. Show me, please, your glory. In what may be the Torah's moment of deepest spiritual intimacy, God promises to reveal all of God's tuv, goodness, and the ineffable name Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, placing Moses in the crack of the rock, allowing Moses to view God's back, although not the divine face. God instructs Moshe to carve 2 new tablets, right, and ascends. And then what happens next is God, in a further explication of God's self, says the 13 attributes, right? As God's kavod or goodness passes by, what is proclaimed is the 13 attributes that we chant at the High Holy Days. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun. Sorry, that's the melody used everywhere else in the world. What's the one that we use here? Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Bechanun. Right, that one that Chaim does. Okay. That one. So that is what gets proclaimed at this moment. Moses responds by prostrating himself and begging for forgiveness. This time not only for the people, but for himself as well. If I've gained your favor, please go in our midst, even though this is a stiff-necked people, which we didn't read that text, but it's there. Pardon our iniquity and our sin and take us for your own. I hereby make a covenant, God responds, answering Moshe's confession, with a brit, a covenant forged in the crucible of human failure and divine compassion. Mark, look what's here. Look, Mark, look what's here. This passage teaches that human brokenness reveals chesed, infinite compassion, as the essence of the divine. From this point in the Jewish narrative, the relationship between God and Israel is sustained by chesed, compassion that need neither be earned nor justified. While this teaching applies generally, it is particularly significant for Moshe, who shatters the tablets at the site of the golden calf, even though he had just offended the same people and solicited God's pardon. In shattering the tablets and standing in the crack of a boulder, Moshe discovers that his broken self requires chesed as much as his people, and that he must cultivate his own capacity for chesed to guide them through the wilderness. In the gap, Moshe discerns the fundamental spiritual truth that brokenness abides in creation, in nature, even in each of God's creatures, even in himself, and that we find the sacred not by judging that brokenness harshly, but by noticing how the fractures both elicit and reveal chesed, compassion. So to Mark's question, what is the tie between Sukkot and this text? We have just come off of Yom Kippur, where it's all about there's a fracture in the relationship between us and our ideals. Our ideals that we tie, if we're religious people, if we're spiritual people, we tie that to godliness. We're trying always as spiritual human beings to be more godly. When I fail those ideals to live a life of holiness and goodness, which we tie to the divine, that's what the divine is, right? For a lot of us, then we fail. That there's a breaking of that relationship. There's a breaking of my own commitment. There's breakage because we're broken. So that's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur says that's okay. Duh, you're broken. You're human. So was Moshe. And this is what Margolius is pulling out of this, is Moshe still needed more from God after God forgave the people. Margolius is suggesting some of this text is about Moshe getting it, that Moshe's limited, which we hit on in here. Moshe's needing something else. Moshe realizes Moshe's limitations, Moshe's brokenness, and needs something else. And God says, my answer is a covenant. That is the answer. And Sukkot is about remembering our fragility. Even after being forgiven, even after coming out of Yom Kippur, where do we go live? In the Sukkah, in the fragile, open, delicate Sukkah that reminds us that we are dependent. We have to be able to see the heavens through the schach, through the roof, or it's not a kosher Sukkah. We are dependent on stuff bigger and in some ways way outside of our control. We're not in the Sukkah today because of the heavens, as it's raining out there. It's very cold. So, right, we're dependent, we're impacted by things way beyond our control. And that's something, like Judith just said, to celebrate. We want to deny, particularly as Americans in the industrialized first world, we want to deny that we're broken. Because then I'm strong and I'm independent and not, all the things that we Americans are supposed to be. Like, that is not Jewish. The Jewish answer is we recognize our brokenness, we address it, we try to figure out how we can have that not be damaging to ourselves and others, all through Yom Kippur. Then we get reminded that also our brokenness is a cause for celebration. Our vulnerability, our fragility, how do we do that? We don't go sit in the Sukkah by ourselves and meditate. That's not the practice. The practice is to be together in the Sukkah, because that's how we celebrate the fact that we are broken, that we are fragile, that we are busted open by that, is we have the capacity out of that to need each other, to want each other, to do this together. That's the point. And that is worthy, says our tradition, of celebration. Shabbat Shalom.
You've been listening to Rabbi Amy Bernstein's Friday morning Torah study from Kehillat Israel in Pacific Palisades, California. For more information, go to our website, www.ourki.org.